So before we watch the film I'm going to show you, I want to step back briefly and talk about how the Medal of Honor itself came to be, because its history explains a lot about why people feel so weighty today about it, right? It's just it's a special thing, and everybody knows about the Medal of Honor. Um, but the funny thing is, and the interesting thing, I guess I would say, is that people don't realize this, but before the Civil War, we did not have any medals. Nope. No, I mean, nowadays you look at soldiers and sailors and Marines and airmen, and we all have medals, tons of medals that we get and stuff, ribbons and things like that, right? But before the Civil War, we had exactly zero. And the reason is because we were very anti-European at the time, although that seems to go in our history, right? But remember, we fought the Revolutionary War, right? And so a lot of people before the Civil War, their grandparents or fathers, were involved in some of these things. Fathers for sure, involved in the War of 1812, or they may have lost people in it, which was another war, right? That we went back and had, Revolutionary War Part Two with the British. Famously burned the White House, and we ended up winning at the end, I guess. And we solved the problems of it, but we had no medals. It was just basically good job, pat you on the back, thanks for saving the whole unit or whatever it was. So they had a problem in the Civil War. As the war dragged on, the Union had a hard time wanting to get people to. Because it was a brutal war. Just absolutely unbelievably brutal. There was one battle where 30,000 Americans died in a day, right? So it was not one of these like, hey, I'll just keep re-enlisting things. So we created the Medal of Honor to help people, not only to make soldiers famous, of course, but to and recognize courage. But it was a very loose system, right? There was a lot of people authorized for it. 1861, you had the Navy Medal of Honor, and then right after in 1862, you had the Army version. And I'll talk mostly about the Army version, but the Army version was first awarded in 1863 to Andrews Raiders for a deep raid into Confederate territory. And Wall Valorous, right? And, interesting. I don't, some of these would not have stood up to, Medal of Honors today. And these standards were incredibly loose. There's an incident where they gave an entire unit the Medal of Honor because they re-enlisted, right? And it was the unit that was dedicated to guarding Washington, D.C. There was another instance where all 29 members of the Honor Guard for Abraham Lincoln's funeral were awarded the Medal of Honor. So it went through some flux and some, back and forth about it. But around 1897, early 1900s, we kind of settled on what the Medal of Honor should be.